I've never believed I could win before. And this is like, I'm starting to get this like idea that it can happen and I can do it. And it's like manifesting, you know? Oh no. I just spent 2 months going down a rabbit hole in 500 to 1,000 runs that I was like, we're in trouble. Like, we are in a bad place. Both of these are good options. Whatever one you ride good will be good. It's going to be great. Just ride either of these two as fast as you can.
Dakotah Norton, welcome back to the Downtime podcast, man. It's been a little while. How's things?
Yeah, it's plugging away nicely. Last time we talked, it was a little bit of a different deal. So now we're slowly, getting a little bit more solidified and riding at the front of the pack, and yeah, lots of cool changes to talk about.
Definitely, man. Yeah, lots to talk about. But first off, you're a podcaster now, eh?
I guess. I kind of jumped into doing some of these podcasts with Vital just to give some perspective on the race from an insider, like a race review type podcast. And I've been quite enjoying it. And hopefully soon I'll be able to get settled in enough at home that maybe I can jump on and start talking to some people about, things that I'm interested in, and maybe not as much about like race history and stuff like that. But overall, I'm just incredibly intrigued by what people are excited about. So yeah, a little bit of a podcaster now, maybe a bit more later.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome, man. So you're obviously enjoying it then, eh? If you're considering doing a bit more.
Yeah. I think it's really fun to pick people's brains, so to speak, and just kind of understand what people are into. Like, I get to be involved with a lot of highly influential people, like being around Aaron the last couple of years, I've learned a ton. And, I get introduced to all these people of all different walks of life because of the network I've created through racing downhill, and from, people that are high level business, or are, bike racers or are car racers, and it's just really exciting to get to talk to people. And most of the time they're into something completely different from whatever they do for a living. And they're so like deeply ingrained in their hobbies and health and business. And it's just really cool to get, to talk to people about that and just chat.
Sweet, man. That's super cool. And how have you found it? Like, have you found it helps you as well? Because you've been quite sort of reflective on your own performances and experiences, I think, in the stuff you've done on the Vital B Practice podcast. Like, have you found that helpful personally? Yeah, absolutely. Just the amount of growth that I've been able to have just due to my environment has been amazing to see, where I was, the human I was when I first started bike racing, and kind of how I got to, last time we chatted, I was kind of getting a taste of that in the sport. And then, I've been able to race on a few different race programs, and you get this, this network of humans that you get to meet and talk to. And it's pretty wild. I quite enjoy it and enjoy reflecting on those things. Nice. And yeah, we spoke early 2020 was the last time we sat down, and we covered a lot of your background there. So if people kind of want to know that, I would recommend they go back and listen to it. There's a lot of graft to get to that point in your career. But for us, let's start in that 2020 year, which was kind of an odd season for everyone with COVID and everything that went on. But it featured a podium for you in Loser. And unfortunately, the end of Da Vinci Racing, which was like a really big deal for you and an awesome program at that point in your career. And it's a pretty hard thing as a rider, I guess, to like be in a program, be seeing success, and then have that program effectively come to an end, right? Yeah, it's never fun when the team shut down, and they shut down late. That was a really weird year because we went racing pretty late, and it was a new bike that we had just got. I mean, I had a handful of weeks on it. I got to ride it for 2 weeks, and then they took it back to the factory. They weren't going to race it, and I was like, it's better. Like, the bike is 2 seconds a lap better no matter what track I'm on. And then went back and started training again on the old bike. And then they were like, oh yeah, you can race the bike. And we had like 2 weeks to get used to it. And it was a high pivot that grew quite a lot. So it had, some quirks about it that I didn't really understand at the time, and now developed riding different bikes,
through the bulk of my career here, I've learned some things that certain bikes have a tendency to do. And I looked at, that season, and I had some crashes, and I just never really understood how light the front end, how the bike had a tendency to wash the front wheel with the growth in the chainstays. And that bike grew a lot. And it was like amazing on like chatter and harsh high speed compression impacts. It like ate, but when you slam it into a corner that wanted to wash the front wheel, just different tendencies when you're riding on the edge. Every bike is a compromise. So I went on this amazing bike and had all this speed, but didn't necessarily know how to harness it. And then at the end of the year was able to get a podium, and it was like such a bittersweet deal with that team shutting. And my mechanic over there was awesome. He was like spot on, phenomenal mechanic, and the whole team really, like, we had learned how to work together, even though I was a lot different than them. And looking back, you always think the grass is greener on the other side. You want to go ride for these big programs and semis and all the shiny stuff. And like looking back, like we really had good things going on that program, and it worked really well.
Yeah, definitely, man. You moved from there onto YT Mob.
Mm-hmm.
Was that quite a late thing to come around?
You're going to see a bit of a thing that keeps happening here.
There's a repeat.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. So went to the YT Mob, and I had hired Martin Whiteley to manage me earlier in the year on Da Vinci. And it just kind of worked out that he needed a rider and I needed a ride. He called me and asked me if I would be interested in riding for the Mob. And yeah, that was like, for me, that was more like, it gave me chills picking up the bike, like it was like, after Aaron had raced for them and won and built this big image for the team. And then I was going on to this, like what I felt like was my first real factory race program, and it was, Whiteley has won some things in his day. So going on to that program, it was, big change.
Yeah. How was that 21 season for you? Again, it started pretty late because we were still sort of coming out the back end of all of the COVID related like travel restrictions and stuff. But I think you opened up with a 9th in Leogang. Yeah,
9th in Leogang, and the bike was all around too soft. And raced all season, had some issues with some crashes, had some issues with weather, and just didn't really have the consistency racing at the front of the pack that I wanted. I think my best result was snowshoe. I got 6th. Mm-hmm. I was like nothing off the podium, and rolled the last jump because I rolled it in practice and it was super fast. I think if I would have jumped it, I would have been on the podium. But no podium that year for me. But overall was just a bit inconsistent. And, I was like dealing with a bunch of life stuff that did really affect my racing. And I was overall just not really as happy, I think, with life as I could have been racing on that program. Okay. And I really let it affect racing. And then overall just felt like I took that pressure that I had and continued to amplify it based upon the fact that I had such inconsistent results. And I really let it eat at me that season. It wasn't really what I wanted.
Yeah, super hard, to separate like kind of effectively, I guess, work and personal. Like they're always going to overlap somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was the last couple of races I was like in a pretty good place, and then I think it showed on the results list. I thought I could have done really well at the second snowshoe race, and unfortunately double flat and ended my weekend.
Oh man, not good. And again, we're back to this repeating scenario. It was a pretty late call, I think, when they made some changes to the way they were going to run the mob. I'm guessing that's super hard as a rider, right? Because it's late. A lot of people have already signed. There's not necessarily seats available. How do you go about trying to get yourself sorted in that situation?
Oh, it was difficult. I just bought my first home that was half burnt down. So it's the house I'm sitting in today, and I had bought it. It was a nice piece of property, super close to Windrock, and it was like going to be a big project, but I was like prepared for my first adult investment, and I had some friends that were contractors and friends that worked in the trades, and then I bought my first home, And then they pulled the plug on the program, and I was like, all the money I had set aside to renovate this house, all my budget, I held on to it because I was like, oh, it was really late and it wasn't looking great. It was like dead end after dead end after dead end for teams. And I was sitting here going, I'm just going to privateer. So I kind of had to hold on to all the money that I had saved up to do my house. All the planning that I'd done. I was like, okay, well, we might have to shift gears and just go race next year. So I kind of hit pause on the house, and I was like, had bought a camper to live in while I was going to build my house and live on this piece of property that I bought. And it was just like hit pause on all that stuff and was able to find a ride with Aaron on the Intense program. It was pretty late in the year. I was actually listening to Aaron's podcast. I think it was a Gypsy Tales podcast, and he called me at the exact same time. Like I was listening to Aaron's podcast, mowing my lawn, and his name popped up on my phone, and I was like, that's bizarre. And we just kind of talked a bit, and that was history. Went racing for Intense the following year.
Yeah, that's a pretty perfect way for things to come around. It's a good matchup, American brand, another American rider that you've looked up to for a long time. And I think, you started to form quite a good friendship with Aaron riding more at Windrock.
Yeah. I definitely was very intimidated by Aaron when we first started with the program. And as things went on, we went to we had a lot of fun, and we have similar interests, his values are a bit different than mine, where we don't exactly line up, but we got along great. Like our personalities worked together really well. And that whole season on Intense was just fun and games. We were having a blast. And at first he was a little frustrated and I did well. And then kind of in the middle season, I kind of had a dip and he was doing well, and it motivated me. And it was this game of us checks and balances for each other throughout the season, and both believing in each other and motivating each other. And I never thought that I'd be in a world where I'd have Aaron Gwynn at the bottom of the hill cheering for me to yes. In the race. The dude is just able to be happy for everyone around him, regardless of his circumstances. I know he's had races where he would hit the ground and be sore and beat up and not even know if he was going to be able to race. He'd still be cheering me on. So it was, we had a lot of fun that first year on Intense. It was a whole change of pace for me for sure. Where I was sitting there going, I don't even know if I'm going to be racing till or if I was going to privateer to going on to race for Aaron, which was wild.
Yeah. How close to the start of the season was that? Did you have much time to get up to speed on the bike?
No. No, none of the above. It was close to the season. We rode a bike that was 3 bikes cut in half and welded together for about 3 weeks. And then we got the bike and we had it for 2 weeks, and then we were shipping off to France. So it happened pretty quick. And I was able to get new tires. We ran the same wheels, same brakes, but new frame, new tires. It's kind of a whole different deal, and it was able to top 10 at the first round on Intense.
That's pretty impressive. And it was Lords, right, where there was issues with the uplift, so there wasn't even that much track time to get used to it. Yeah,
it was very minimal. So, and Aaron absolutely ate it in practice. The dude was, he was riding phenomenal all weekend, was dropping me. I was just not even in the same ballpark of the speed that Aaron was riding at that race. And then he had a huge one right before finals. And he was his hands were all beat up. His whole ribs were all chewed up, and he was in rough shape. I thought the dude was easily going to win. No joke. And then it was it took the wind out of the sails. We were both sitting in the pit, and I had a crash. He had a crash, and we were uh-oh. And we didn't get a lot of time. So it was we went, and was overall I remember that race run. It felt so easy. It felt like a cruisy run, just another practice lap, and I ended up 8th, and I was pretty happy with that.
Definitely, man. Yeah, it's a year where it seems like things really started to get going for you. What do you think it took for you to become a rider that was kind of consistently challenging for the podium towards the end of the season, whereas maybe before that you'd been like a top 10 capable rider, but perhaps struggling a bit with like consistency?
Lack of consistency. I mean, how many riders get on a new bike and podium the first year? Very, I think very few. And you take, so I podiumed the first year on Da Vinci, and I did it in like a world of chaos. The run was absolutely hanging on for my life, almost crashed like 5 times. And I thought that's what the run had to be to get a World Cup podium. Get my second World Cup podium, and it was like I was cruising. Like it was like nothing special. You know, like changed my whole perspective on what I had to do to be on a World Cup podium. And then YT, I was 0.1 or 0.2 off on a new bike first year. I had podiumed on the Da Vinci high pivot, almost podiumed on the YT, very close. Then podiumed the first year on the Intense. The second bike at Intense I podiumed on. So it's like it takes me until the end of the season to figure out all the quirks of the bike and the changes I need to make, how I need to ride it. And then you look at the end of the season after I have 4 or 5 races, 3, 4, or 5 races on a new bike. All of a sudden I'm in the mix again. And then I'm fighting for podiums. But because I've changed bikes and changed teams every year, it's a lack of consistency that people don't consistently put me as a top guy because I always have something changing. So now I had 2 years on the Intense program, and I definitely had my fair share of issues last year, but you see me on another new bike, consistency. And then I start to fight in the, you know, at the end there, fight for podiums and fight for wins. But it just takes a little bit of time to get there.
No, that makes complete sense. And Lenzerheide that year, it looked like it was on, right? I think you qualified, was it second to Amaury?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the last thing I wanted. Dude, I was like...
So too much pressure or what?
Yeah, it was the first time. So in 22, the first year of Intense, I really struggled mentally in terms of feeling performance pressure, fear of crashing, like what is failure in my head, right? Underperforming is what I would consider is failure. And you're going to have, you know, dips in your results. Things are going to go wrong. You're going to get flat tires, and that's a part of racing. But when I would just straight up crash, or I would just, to me, that felt like failure. And I really struggled in my head to accept that if I was going to fight for wins and fight for podiums, that I was going to have to be okay with the consequences of those actions. And I never was able to truly accept the consequences for swigging to try to be at the front. And when things are working awesome, I feel like I can easily ride down into the top 15. But I don't really, that to me, like if I'm not in the top 10, like I'm pretty upset about my performance. That's just where I hold my standard of like, that's what I'm looking to do. And that year on Intense, I just couldn't wrap my head around being, because I've had so many things kind of not go my way. I always had this like fear of like the whole thing toppling down. Like, oh, yep, I'm just going to be back looking for a ride. Or if I like just put so much pressure on myself to not be in a position where the team's shutting down, I'm looking for a ride, I don't know what's going to happen. And that really affected me until I just kind of realized that if I do perform, I'm going to have a ride. So just like be positive, look forward at what you know you're capable of, and just accept that to do what you believe that you're capable of doing, you're going to have to be okay with it could not go your way. And that's just something you have to accept. And you have to be okay with that. So when I qualified second at Lenzerheide, it was just completely too much pressure for me. And I don't think that I cracked by any means. I know like exactly what happened. I was taking an inside line, and I ducked my head like this because I turned my head in, and the pole was straight up, and I thought I was going to like hit my helmet or hook my visor on the pole. And I ducked my head like this, and when I did that, the bike washed. So the big thing that I struggled with in that race run was not getting in the zone or being okay with what happened. Like, yeah, it was miserable until I got on the trainer and started warming up at the top. Sitting in the pit all day was absolutely miserable. It's you have to wait the longest. There's nobody up there when you get there. You know, everybody's down there watching you. And I rode really well until I saw the screen. They had the TV screen with the splits, and I could hear my splits and see my time on the motorway in the middle of the track. And it really messed with me because I seen like splits were good, and I heard, and that was like really, it like took me away from my focus. And then I felt like I was, after the steep, like coming into that section, I was beginning to manage because I seen the screen, I knew it was good, and I'm like, you just have to like get home, like. And that's not the mindset you want to be in when you're racing a World Cup. So I definitely feel like I didn't crack because I showed up. My splits were good. I never have good first splits. And then it was like a big turning point for me that day as well because, yeah, it was what I would consider that thing we call failure, right? It didn't go my way. I crashed. And then I get to the bottom of the track, and I had got more hugs, more fist bumps, more people that were like happy for me for a run that I felt like I failed than I ever did in a run that I considered good, but wasn't like a podium, right? So it like completely shifted. I just needed that one moment to change how I looked at my racing.
No way, man. That's amazing. Yeah. I spoke to Aaron actually last week in an interview, and he said that he was on the chairlift with you at Leger World Champs that year going up the track. And you said to him, like, this is the first race that I've enjoyed being at. So it sounds like that moment in Lenzerheide had enabled you somehow to like free yourself from a lot of that anxiety you were feeling, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. And I hired a mental coach, and that really helped my perspective. But I needed that moment to put it all in perspective, like how far I've come, what I'm doing, because you get so like stuck in this place of it never being enough. Nothing is ever enough. It's like you dream of achieving something, you achieve it, and then the next day it's like, okay, well, I got to do it again. That's what I do now. And it's like when you don't do that, it's like, it's not okay. It's not good enough. It's not, you know. So it's definitely, that was a big moment for me in my career, that race. And then Leger was pretty fun. We had full on Bash Brothers. We were getting ready to go up to the lift for our race runs, and we're riding down the road to the lift. And this dude, like, Aaron's riding down the side of the sidewalk, and this dude like swerves at him, and we got into like an altercation with this guy that tried to run over Aaron. And I like stopped and shoved his mirror shut, and he was like revving the car and backing up. So we almost didn't make it up for that one.
Amazing. At World Champs as well. That was a hell of an event. The track, the crowd, like everything about it. Yeah,
that's one of those moments that when you like see. I mean, I felt like I had a good result there. I got 8th, and it was the best. The best 8th place I've ever gotten because I did it and I enjoyed it. And then you come down to the bottom and you watch like that dream moment, right? And there's a few of those moments that I've really felt throughout my career where like you want that like so bad. You see that moment and you're like, you wonder what that would be like. It's like to the point where it almost brings tears to your eyes. And I've had a couple of those in my career, and it's like that's like special. Even like being there little and seeing like where the sport of downhill is and seeing someone get to experience a moment like that as an athlete, you can really appreciate that. And you're just like, that's what I want to work for. And that's what you want to achieve as a downhill racer.
Yeah, 100%. The picture behind me, Loic on the podium at that World Champs must have felt pretty special. Just being in the crowd there was incredible. So yeah, it's definitely, I can understand where that motivation comes from. And we went on from there to Val di Sole, end of the season. A lot of riders were pretty tired, I think, and there was a little bit of lethargy around the pit. but the track was brutal as ever. And yeah, you and Aaron both had a good race, seemed to be enjoying it, finding your groove there. Third place on a track like that, like a track that everyone says is a rider's track. Like I think it's a track that's high on a lot of riders' list of places they'd like to go well at. That must have felt like a really good way to finish off a pretty awesome season.
Yeah. That was, you flash back to Lenzerheide, I qualified well and I didn't deliver. And kind of looking at that, I was able to take some of that mindset into Val d'Isole, qualified well and was able to sleep well, kind of kept it chill and was just okay with whatever. I mean, of course, like, yeah, I wanted a podium. And then like kind of that racecraft is kind of developed in my career. I've been able to like work on my racecraft through these moments. And you look at that moment would have crippled me before. Like I would have been miserable. I wouldn't have been able to sleep. I couldn't have ate dinner. Like I would have been in like not shambles, but like heavily bothered by it. And then you look at that race where I was able to I had a little more experience in this situation. I was able to accept that if I have a good run, I'll be on the podium. If I don't, well, I mean, I can wrap up with top 10 here, hopefully pretty easy. Get out of the season on a high, start building for next season. And yeah, I was able to back it up. I mean, it was nothing special as far as like a Val d'Isole race run, just because everyone, I think, makes such a big deal out of Val d'Isole. They're always, it's so hard on the hands. It's so physical. The track's dead. Like, it's too rough. They need to do something about this. And like when everyone starts doing that, I'm just like, like, let's go. Because I never have hand issues at World Cups. I train super hard in the off season. I ride a ton of moto. And I feel like that's like one of those things that really is a benefit to me. It's just like how I can physically hold on these long, rough tracks. And like even Mount St. Anne this year, when it was really rough. Like I got, if I know I'm having hand issues, like you're getting arm pump, like dudes are struggling. So I tend to do better at those long, rough physical tracks. And those are what I look forward to in the season, which I really dig that. And I want more of that style of racing. But I think when it's really easy to go fast, a lot of dudes take a lot of risk and go fast. And those races are the ones I tend to not do as well at, which would be like Leogang or Lenzerheide or, I mean, I've historically done good at Lenzerheide just because of the BMX, but that kind of style of racetrack, I guess Andorra is almost like that now where it's a bit quicker. But yeah, what a way to end the season. I mean, long, rough, physical track. Was able to get the team overall on the day, which was like a real big cherry on the top. But it was really nice going into the off season, having that feeling of like being at the front. But I almost think it would be better if everyone went into the off season a little more hungry.
Okay.
It's like
interesting.
You almost, when you have moments like that, you almost like, okay, yeah, we're there. And it's like, there's someone else that was almost there and is really hungry, you know? It's like,
yeah.
And you got to remember that. So it was a cool way to end the season, but it's the only time I've went out to the off season, like feeling like, yeah, we did something really special at the last round. Usually I kind of go into the off season with a bitter taste. So it's, it was a little different for sure.
Do you think, obviously you had maybe not comfort, but you had that knowledge that you had the second year on the team kind of thing. So you weren't, looking about trying to find a ride, changing bikes, all of that. And you had that good end to the season. Do you feel like maybe you like backed off a little bit, like in hindsight? Do you know what I mean? Like took the pressure off yourself on the training or?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
I think like sometimes, we had a new bike, and again, last season, we did get it a lot earlier, like the actual suspension design. We rode it for a couple months before the season, but didn't actually have the race bike until a couple weeks before the racing. Just like different tubing, different, like the whole suspension kinematics were the same, but just like the lay of the frame, like what tubing was used where. They took a ton of weight off the bike. So we were riding a bike that was like 5 pounds lighter than the one we had been training on in the off season. So that affects suspension setup and stuff. And I think going into this season, I did more in terms of suspension than I ever had done. I had always ran a pretty basic setup, and I got definitely more in depth with suspension tuning and different kind of strategies, or however you want to call it, than I had in the past. Just running faster rebound, running a bit more compression, maybe a bit less or more sag. And I had got pretty deep into it before the race season started. And just overall, like anytime like you do something at your track at home, if you can put the wheels on the perfect part of the track, in every on every inch of the track, you can run crazy fast rebound. You can run the bike crazy stiff or crazy soft. And then you show up to a World Cup track and you kind of just get a reality check. So like Windrock, man, I had it using full travel and it would bottom out once a run, and I thought it was great. And then I showed up and I didn't go anywhere to test preseason, which is like, maybe I should have done that. And I showed up, I went overseas to Moorsey and bottomed out 6 times a run, to the point where I thought my crowns were going through my seals. And I went to the Union test camp. Santa Cruz did like a test week, and my girlfriend rides for the Union. So I went. They were nice enough to host me and have me over there and spend some time with them for a week before the first World Cup. And I got over there and I was like, oh no. I just spent 2 months going down a rabbit hole in 500 to 1,000 runs that I was like, we're in trouble. Like, we are in a bad place. And kind of had to reel it back in and get back to reality a little bit before the first World Cup.
No way. Do you think what you'd learned going down that rabbit hole helped you get back to a good setup for World Cup tracks quicker, though? Yeah, I mean, I kept everything the same and then just added spring rate, decreased sag, and I guess made my sag appropriate for that track. Just overall with spring rate, I mean, I was kind of, was really undersprung. And I guess a lot of that is just because I have been looking for comfort out of the bike and just trying to get around the fact that, these things, to go that fast on them, they're really stiff and they're really hard to hold on to. So maybe going in a bit of a different direction of trying to get some more comfort back. Yeah. Do you think you'll do more like World Cup style speed and track work this off season then? Or is there a risk involved in that a lot of riders don't want to touch unless they're actually at a World Cup track? It's hard to get that balance, eh? That's a big question. And something I've been spending a ton of time thinking about, of like how to improve. And, you look at motocross guys, they spend a ton of time on the turn track. You can ride, other than ruts in your knees, you can ride a turn track until you can't hold on anymore. And it's a low risk of injury just because there's no jumps. Like, a lot of the big injuries happen on jumps, either with bike mechanicals or rider mechanicals, riding errors. But it's like, how can we ride higher speed safer? And that's been the thing that's been really hard for me to wrap my head around. Is you go to these World Cup tracks and they're so much faster in terms of average speed than everything I ride at home. And I think my local mountain is kind of dangerous. There's the sides of the tracks are not cleared super well. The rocks are really sharp. It's overall, like, you don't want to crash there. Like, if you go blow off the track into the woods, it's not like you see these dudes riding Lomers in the UK and they can just explode and then they slide out and they're okay. And it's like they laugh and get up. Like, if I crash at home, like, I'm going to be hurt. Like, it's pretty jagged. So it's like, how do I find a way to ride faster in a safe environment? Like, how do I find that limit? And I've been really spending a ton of time thinking about that. And I talked to the motocross guys quite a bit. We went to Club MX for their open house last week, and I was able to kind of talk to some high-level athletes in other sports and try to understand like how they
prepare to race motocross. And I think they are just trying to ride a little bit better for 30 minutes, right? Or have more intensity for the first 10 minutes. And it's very hard for me to relate to that, considering we race for 3 minutes, two to 4, maybe 5 minutes, but usually 2 to 4 minutes, with such tight margins. I think you just have to get a bit more comfortable going at a higher speed. So it's like, where can we find a safe place to do that, to push that limit? And if you do have a crash, like, as long as you have pads on, like, you're going to be able to get up and be all good. And that's been something I've been really spending a lot of time thinking about. And maybe it's just on a trail bike in a grass field riding flat corner slalom. Maybe that's how you get better at it. Or I don't really have a good answer. And we need to go fast safely.
Yeah, it's the ongoing puzzle, right? It's a tricky one. Getting ready to race a workout. Like, everyone seems to say they turn up, they think everything's mint, they've done all the training, the bike setup's great. They turn up at a World Cup and they're like, oh, it's quite fast here. But it seems to happen like year on year. It's hard to break that cycle, right?
Yeah, and we look at motocross, and when I went to Club MX, I mean, one of my buddies runs the pro shop there. He doesn't run the factory race shop, but he runs the pro shop. And you look at Jeremy Martin's there, and the dude's living in the cabin, right next to where my buddy stays. He's out running in the morning, and then he's in the gym, and everything is like centralized. And literally the only thing they have to worry about is eating and training. And they have every track they could ever need. There's a sand, like a supercross track that he roads faster to work on ruts. There's a whoop track. There's a sand track. There's, an amateur motocross track that's really fast. Their technical front track. And it's like, there's every tool you could need is there. But our sport is not there yet. And we don't have anyone, we have such a big push in mountain biking, building for the bottom of the pyramid, like the beginner, the average consumer, grow the sport, get more people in, but we have no dirt works, no builder for the 1%. And that's, we are almost doing very little development for the 1%, which is quite interesting for me. When you see kids, you have this new generation of mountain bike kids that have rode mountain bikes since a young age, like strictly mountain bikers, and they're doing backflips at 7 years old, and they're phenomenal. And there is almost, 80% as good as we are in their, early teens. At what point do we start building for those riders in the future? When does the focus shift from getting more people into the sport? Now we have so much to get people in the sport. The majority of the building is being done for the average mountain biker. It would be really nice if we had a place that was specific to the 1%, like a Club MX, an MTF, or I think the only real place I can think of to go to that has tracks for that 1% is Morzine, or maybe New Zealand Jeep Dream Track. There's good tracks in New Zealand, but it's so far and few between for development for the top of the sport. And I think at some point in time, we're going to see riders start to kind of fall out of the sport if they don't have a way to continue to progress, because there's even where I'm at now, it's like, how do I get better? I really almost don't have an answer to that question. Like, what is the main place? Like, where can I go? What can I do to become a better mountain bike rider? Like, I know I need to go to the UK and ride in the mud and roots. But I've gotten pretty good at steep stuff, and it's like, that is the question of, like, at some point in time, there's going to be a time where there needs to be someone or something for that select group coming.
Yeah, I think that's why Dovey's maybe been so popular with a lot of the workout riders over here, because, it's definitely at the upper end of bike parks in the UK. And I think it's the only place that provides sort of speed and duration that's anything close to a World Cup, which, Bernard's moved nearby, and there's often, you go any day of the week when it's open, and there's at least one World Cup rider generally floating about somewhere getting some training in. So yeah, seeing people like Dan Atherton building things like that, maybe we need more of that around the world, I guess. But
I'd like to see
Yeah,
it.
hard to find the space. Yeah, man, you have to come over. Dovey's a lot of fun. Let's talk a bit about this 23 season then, man, because it started off in Lenzerheide. I think you got a 9th place, which is a good start to any season. Again, new bike. You lost Aaron, unfortunately, at that race. He had a pretty nasty crash, which took him out for the rest of the season. And he's a significant part of the team. Like, you guys seem to ride together a lot in practice when you're both healthy. Like, does that have an impact on you, losing someone like Aaron so early in the season?
Yeah, for sure. Kind of took the wind out of the sails. I think Aaron is really good to have on track and to ride with and that kind of a thing. But more so, I just think the energy in which he brought to the program was really critical. It's like missing a puzzle piece. The puzzle never feels complete without that missing piece. Me and Joe rode together a ton, and we were able to bounce ideas from suspension setup to lines. And really, I grew a great relationship with Joe Breeden over the course of the season and enjoyed riding with him. And we did our thing and had a great time. But definitely the races Aaron was missing from was a bit of a bummer. Overall, it's just he brings like so much positivity and so much energy to the program. It's just really nice having him there, having him in the pit during practice, just kind of going through the deal, and having the whole team. It's like being down a cylinder, you know. But
yeah,
he was able to come to some races and hang out, and then actually killed it in the booth for the broadcast. So.
Yeah.
I think he was able to like make some value and then find a way to still be at the races and make an impact and bring insight and create value like he wants to. He wasn't making, he was definitely helping us within the team and creating value, but like overall just finding something that he's happy being there, happy doing and keeping everything moving.
Yeah, but not a bad person to have on the side of the track during practice, I guess, like picking up on lines, looking at what people are up to.
Yeah.
And that's pretty helpful.
It's kind of funny. He's like, yep, both of these are good options. Whatever one you ride good will be good. It's going to be great. Just ride either of these two as fast as you can.
That's probably the best advice, right? Rather than trying to force a rider to a line that maybe they don't feel good on or feel comfortable on just because it's like 0.1 faster or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just good having him there. And the way he looks at a racetrack was really insightful for me because even though we raced together and I followed him and throughout the course of, the 22 season, in 23, he was like, he wasn't racing. And not that we keep secrets by any means, but he'd be like, oh, yeah, maybe get a little bit here, get a little bit there. It was cool just to have him, be able to spend less time thinking about, his own race and more be invested in our race, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. It really does. So let's split the season down into kind of halves. I guess the first half, Lenzerheide up to sort of Andorra. A couple of top 10s, a top 15, a few races where it didn't quite go your way. How are you feeling? Like, how are you gelling with the bike and like the mindset and all that side of things in that first half?
Man, couldn't decide on a spring rate. It was really,
Really?
It was getting me in trouble. Yeah. Well, I went to Val di Sole. I went to Val di Sole and I had the bike a bit softer and I just felt like maybe it wasn't supportive enough. And I knew I was riding fast. We didn't have any time training. So I didn't really have like a gauge on how fast I was going against the other top guys. And I just got up there in my qualifying run and decided to ride pretty fast and see where I stacked up, and then bottomed the fork and went over the handlebars. Jumped into a big hole that I didn't really realize was there and just absolutely got spit over the bars. And then Thibaut went past me, and I gave him a little bit of time and then dropped in behind him and ended up catching him by the bottom. And I was like,
no way.
Okay. Even though I didn't get my qualifying run I wanted, I'm on pace. So then went up there and I knew I wanted to try to compete for a win at Val di Sole. I thought that was capable of the way I've been riding and my speed, and I hadn't had a chance to show how well I was riding. And I had went to a longer frame, and I was really confident that was going to make a big change. And it was I had not gone to the longer frame yet. I was still on the shorter bike. It was later in the season, but overall was confident in the way I was riding. Ended up changing my spring rate on race day, and it was fine in practice because it was really slippery in the morning in Val di Sole. And then once I got in my semi-final, could not keep the wheel on the ground because it got the rebound was so fast with the spring change, and then it got really hot, and then I just couldn't control the bike. And instead of having the confidence to just back off and ride it to the bottom, it was trying to push, and it was still really high up on the track, and just ended up missing a line in the only place where you could really mess it up. The most critical corner on the track, I blew it. Just hit something coming in, got balked, missed my braking point, blew over the berm, and then was in the tape, and it was over. It was definitely didn't go the way I wanted to. I lost my mind, completely out, behavior that was completely unacceptable, was so mad. And then kind of just formulated a plan to go stay in Europe for the rest of the summer and ride the best tracks in the best place possible and just go to work. Flew home for national champs, and then immediately flew back to Europe after national champs and just stayed there for the whole rest of the year and trained.
Fair play. So just deep into bike setup stuff then?
Yeah, just to get comfortable, in general. I felt like I was in a pretty good place, and I had some things I wanted to try and just never got to answer those questions preseason, and didn't feel like I had done enough work to find confidence. I'm one of those riders that even if I know it's not going to work, I have to check that box to create confidence. I think Minar's kind of like that, where it's he just has to get it out of his head, or else it just pollutes the waters, so to speak. So I went back for 2 weeks before what race was that? Middle of the season. You had a race list there? I don't remember what the middle of the race was.
We went to Worlds and then
before
Andorra.
Worlds.
Yeah.
So Stever welded up a longer frame on short notice, and I went 9 millimeters longer with the frame. And the first lap I did on it, I was what have I been doing? Just felt like I had been just wasting, because when I went to YT, it was either 460 or 480, and I went to a shorter bike. And I just went to the longer bike, ran my bars where I wanted them, regardless of whatever anybody had to say about it. I got a longer frame, ran my bars to the moon, and was shredding. And then it was okay, now we can go race, and tested some other stuff on the bike that I had issues with, and just rode every combination possible that I needed to. It was me, no mechanic, just absolutely hammering runs, making changes and hammering runs. And I got everything in a good place that I was really confident in, and then just was able to get so many runs that I was able to turn the whole year around. Just find that confidence.
Yeah. What, other than the reach then, what were the kind of big levers that you found really worked for you to get that bike hooking?
I changed offset. So I did some trail adjustments. I did some different tire combinations. We had some new wheels, spoke tensions, suspension setup, links. I was changing every links, shocks, forks, everything. Just me and a multi-tool at the Planey lift station. Just Nina's mechanic was dude, put the Allen wrenches down. What are you doing? Stop. And you're out of control, dude. You're a tweaker. And by the end of the season, he was well, I guess it worked for you. So, there's not a lot of dudes that are willing to pull crowns in between laps, changing stems and crowns and the whole line.
Good effort, but if you found a way to get the bike turned on, then that's pretty awesome. You mentioned bar height, so we should talk about the DAC stack as it's become known. Obviously there's a big moto background for you. Is it a comfort thing? And do you have to are you making adjustments elsewhere to make that bar height work, or does it just work for you?
It's a bit of an optical illusion because the Intense frame has such a short head tube that it looks like I'm monstrously to the sky, but it's really 10 mil higher than a lot of dudes.
Okay.
Maybe if you set it next to Minar, it's like pretty close to Minar's bike. Mine are a little higher than his, but it's just, I find so much comfort in just standing up. I never want to feel like I'm getting pushed out the front door. It's like never something I want is to feel like I'm getting bucked over the handlebars. I want to just be able to jump into everything and know I'm going to stand centered and neutral, and I'm not going to have to move around on the bike. And I can just kind of stand there and kind of lean and never really get too forward, never get back, just kind of like be really centered on the bike.
Have you gone any higher with it? Like, what happens if you go either way from that position that you've settled on?
If I could go higher, I would.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm afraid the bolts are going to snap. I did send Renthal a DM. I'm like, hey, y'all, what do y'all feel about a 50 mil pair of bars? Yeah, I went to a longer front center with a higher bar. And because whenever like I get to Europe, it's steep, I feel uncomfortable, I feel like I'm getting pushed forward, so I raise the bars, and then the bike's tiny. And I really don't understand, like, I really don't think that a lot of the average consumer really understands what we mean when we say testing or bike changes, or like what we go through to ride at the level we do. And I think that I really have found it interesting, like the perception of the let's call it the average mountain biker, the normal dude that probably doesn't even check his fork pressure when he goes and rides. You know, when I'm talking about running, still, you know, changing spoke tension, changing offset, changing 3 mil in the reach, making a big difference, like 1 PSI. Like I don't think people actually understand, like, oh yeah, I was doing some testing. I don't think they understand that I ran how many combinations of fork pressure to compression clickers, or what we can really feel and what we need when the bike is absolutely on the limit to make to make it not feel like the wheels are getting light or the bike's squatting too much and you have to lean forward on the handlebars to turn. I was doing like 10 runs a day for like 6-7 days in a row. And like, I might have ran 4 different sets of tires in a day. I might have changed. I mean, I literally never did a run for 200 runs without making a change, either to a fork clicker, a bar height, an offset. Like I'm, you know, like running my bars at 25 mil underneath the stem with a 6 millimeter headset cup compared to 20 millimeters underneath the stem with a 3 millimeter headset cup. When we went to Andorra, what race did we go to? We went to one race, and the bike, I changed reach and bar height and fork pressure for 4 laps in a row. Like Worlds, we ran the bike at 3 millimeter with a 0.5 slacker cup, and then with the bars at 20 mil. And then I felt like I needed to go to 25 mil, and then the bike felt cramped, so we ran a 6 millimeter cup for finals. Like, I don't think people actually understand, like, and maybe I'm unique with these changes, and some guys like Charlie Hatton has had how many years on the same bike, the same parts, and he's like, this is where he's really comfortable, and he never changes a clicker, and or they don't change progressions, or they don't change, you know, things. But like Loic will change a spring and a link depending on the track, and I'm a person that also makes changes like that. So you may run a 550 spring with a linear link or a 600 spring with a progressive link, and you're only changing dynamic sag 2%. And then because you're changing springs, the rebound has to change. And it's like, to get it right for the race run. And not only are you you're almost predicting what you're going to need, because you can't go there until you go there. Until you get that adrenaline and get in that situation and the track is cleaned off and you're under pressure, you can't ride that fast. No one can. You always go 5 seconds faster than practice in your race run. And you have to have the support you need for that, or else you just can't stay on the bike.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, it's experience, isn't
yeah.
it? Which is why all that testing becomes so important, man. It's it's cool to hear you've been smashing the laps and putting the puzzle to bed. So it's good stuff.
It's good.
And you mentioned that you've learned to get more comfortable with steep stuff. Bar height helps with the steep stuff. So we've got to talk about Ludenville. Steep track, new track, looks super cool. I had massive FOMO that I didn't go to that one. It looked wicked. And it really seemed to start getting going for you there. There's been talk, and I think you've said in the past, like you're a bit of a slow burner, like you work your way into your runs. You tend to be faster in the lower splits, but it looked like you were kind of all guns blazing from the very start of Ludenville, man. Like, talk us through that weekend from your perspective.
Yeah, qualifying I crashed and was up there, like in, I think I don't know, I was like 20th or 30th, was fully off the bike sliding. Qualified kind of halfway decent, and then it was dry, and I just overrode one section, but felt like I was riding really well all week. Had qualified really, really well at Andorra and never got to show. Had a pretty big mistake in the first corner at Andorra. Could have ate a sandwich in the first corner and qualified 6th, and I was just like, and then we got rained out. So I kind of felt like I wanted to prove what speed I had, I guess, and got a bit ahead of myself in qualifying and crashed. Got caught out in a pretty simple section, just wasn't confident enough to use the brakes where I needed to. And then semis, it was really slippery. And I actually followed Joe in the morning, British guy. He's pretty good in the wet. So you kind of used him to see what the pace was. Not used, but I mean, he follows me a lot, so I took my opportunity to follow him. And just kind of putzed it through the semi, got it into the show. I knew it would be super easy to make a mistake. And with how narrow the track was, the mistakes could be really costly. Cruised her through, and then just got up there and decided that I was going to give it.
You definitely went ham, man. You could see it. Like, it looked like it was very much on the edge for a lot of that run.
Yeah, and I never look like that. Like, I feel like, I mean, maybe sometimes I do look like that, but when I watch my runs back, I think of how I felt, and I felt like I was absolutely on the edge, like swinging off of it, and I'm like, I look like I'm on a Sunday drive. And then I watched that run, and I was like, I mean, that was my career best result, and I fully missed the line and slid, almost crashed, got back on the track, put both my feet in. Like, I had both feet out sliding on and off camber, 5 foot lower than where I should have been. Don't even know I couldn't even tell you what was down there. I just slid, was in the air when I needed to turn, and was all of a sudden down here and sliding. And just kind of kept going for it, and almost won a World Cup. I mean, old Loic Bruni, he came through to do what he does.
0.7, that's kind of got us smart a bit, eh? That's so close, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I went down like 45 minutes before those guys, so I was sitting down there forever waiting, and I think it definitely tacked up and got slower, like it rolled slower than when I went, because when I went there was very little grip, but it would have rolled fast. And then the sun came out, it probably got a bit tacky, slowed things down, and then probably came back around towards the end of the day, or Loic just did what Loic does. I mean, his ride at Andorra in the mud was absolutely the most underrated ride of the day. It was phenomenal. I honestly don't understand how he rode that fast in those conditions. And then at Ludenville, he definitely showed why he is one of the best, if not the best in the world. When it's hard, he's really good. So I definitely think if I wouldn't have made those mistakes, could have won a World Cup.
Yeah, but also second at a World Cup on a brand new track.
Yeah.
Like, level playing field, no one knew the track. Like, that's got to be a good feeling. You must have sort of been pretty fired up coming into Leger.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Like, it's just, it was like kind of bittersweet. Like, I was sitting there in the podium or sitting there in the hot seat, and I was going, man, like it'd be really cool to get a podium. I would probably be a top 10. And then it was like, there's a podium. And then it was like, wow, I could maybe win the race. And that was like pretty eye-opening for me. It was the first time I like thought I could win. So kind of like got my hopes up a little bit, and then was like, career best result. You can't be too upset about that.
Yeah, it's a good weekend
out.
Yeah,
good weekend out, if you will.
Yeah, and you seemed in good spirits in Leger, and things were going well. Strong quali and semi. I think you were third in both.
Yeah, I third in quali. Felt like I rode pretty good. Well, third in the semi, flatted at the bottom. So like I was like, it was really weird because I was like, it felt more like a final to me. Just I don't really know why. I got to the bottom and I was like, oh, third, sick. I was like, wait, I gotta do this again. And I got a broken rim, and I was like, no, I was just like, kind of nursed it at the bottom. So I knew like I was, once again, knew I could probably go to a pretty good one. And then, I just pushed the front. I went to like turn over a rut, and it was a line I'd been hitting all week because the rut kind of ran you off the track, and it had a tendency to make you want to like kind of check up and hit the brakes. So I sat up, went to go turn across the rut, and when I went to push to kind of hop the rut, I pushed too hard, and it was like the stuff on the back of the rut where like it was all dusty, and it just tucked the front. And I honestly I had to go back and watch the video to know what happened, because I had no idea how I hit the ground. It was just like went out from under me so fast that I had no idea. And then it was just like, but to go do that and like qualify third, semi third, knew I could have been on for a good result, and then like just crash and go, I gave it my all. It's all good. Like, it's all good. It's okay. Was pretty like still trying, like a moment for growth, and like kind of was after Val de Sol, like not necessarily, like I wasn't even in the final, but not being in a good place in terms of like accepting failure or like getting mad at myself or getting upset at whatever. There was just like, I gave it my best effort and it didn't go my way, and being okay with that, like trying to be okay with that, like kind of was not being like, I didn't have an urge to like yell at the bottom, it was just like,
that's good.
I gave it my all. Like I didn't want to go disappear and just be upset. It was just like, I did everything I possibly could. And then I was dumping gravel out of my goggles. So it's like, what are you going to do? Be content with like Aaron always says, be content with your effort. And that's something like I've been trying to work on.
Yeah. And I think, you at this point, you're really starting to build, I don't know how it works for you, but for me, like I'm quite evidence-based, I guess. And if I was building those results, like a third in qualies and a third in semi is still awesome results. Okay, it didn't convert on race day, but you've got a second, you've got 2/3, and these are all like evidence in your mind that, okay, next time we go racing, like I'm pretty good at this.
Yeah.
It's got to start getting there.
And through this whole like process, as I'm getting these like little tastes or breadcrumbs of like, okay, had issues in qualified sixth at Andorra, was on pace here, and I third here in the semi. I was sitting there at this race, and then I'm looking at the dudes that got third in the semi. I was like, wow, I wish I could do that. And then here I am doing it, and it's just like the whole process of proving to yourself that you're a top guy, and proving to yourself that you can compete to win the race, which is like a whole new shift in mindset for me. Like I've never believed I could win before. And this is like, I'm starting to get this like idea that it can happen and I can do it. And it's like manifesting, throughout the second half of the season there, when things were going right and I was comfortable and everything was dialed in and I'm riding well. It's like my head is getting to the point where like, you can podium on any track, any weekend, if you have a good run. So just, it's like trying to get that, become more normal with that way of thinking.
Yeah, totally. And you picked up a helmet sponsor with GoPro. That was a mid-season thing as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, just kind of like
And
a little
that, I
boost.
guess that, yeah, I was going to say that must help with the confidence, right? Like having a big brand like that kind of getting behind you, and like a lot of these top riders, you know, they've got some kind of energy drink or whatever, like a helmet sponsor. It's almost seems to be a rite of passage kind of thing. That must have been another little confidence boost.
For sure. Absolutely. It made me feel good. Like it was just like your hard work is not going unnoticed, you know? Like what you're putting, like what you put into this. Like, I mean, of course, you know, like when I'm the only dude that's flying back to Europe early, like I easily could fly in and it would be easy. Like go home, spend time hanging out with my dog, spending time with my girlfriend, living at home, like, you know, seeing my family, seeing my friends. Like it would be nice to have a reset. And like I'm doing the exact opposite. Like going against the grain of what would be easy. Like, I mean, I remember at one point, like I was like sitting there and I'm literally trying to put a headset cup in with a 2x4 that I found laying in the field over here, like at the place we were staying. And I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, why do I do this to myself? Like, this is terrible, you know? And I broke like on the fork, the front brake holder, I broke it, snapped it. And I'm like, how do I get one of these? Like, what? And I'm like having to ask people for stuff. And I hate under all circumstances, nothing more than I hate having to ask for things. Zip ties, but I don't have a car. Like I have a multi-tool and like whatever tools I can like steal off Jim from the union. When he's there, he lets me use his toolbox, but I'm like walking around the house just trying to find what I could. It would be so easy to go and do the exact opposite. Go home, hang out, have all my stuff, ride my dirt bike, hanging out, and like kind of makes it worth it, you know, when you like go and you work hard and you like see the direct benefit of what your hard work is. It makes it completely worth it.
Yeah, totally, man. And then on to snowshoe, home World Cup. Always an interesting track that throws a lot of challenges in the mix. I think you US guys are maybe a bit more familiar with it than some people, but I don't think that makes the track easy by any stretch of the imagination. A crash in semis, like how do you like reboot after something like that? Because you know then if you want to have a good race, you've got to go through that section probably faster than you were riding it when you crashed on it and stay on the bike. Like how do you get into the headspace to believe like I can overcome that?
Yeah. Come out of a corner, started pedaling and tipped over. I mean, like racing incident, you can't really like get upset with yourself for like something like I wouldn't, if you could have, if I had 50 guesses of where I could have crashed on that track, it wouldn't have chose right there. It was the lowest speed corner on the track, super easy to ride through it. I just like was trying to sprint too hard and tuck the front on a route. And it's like maybe just rushing it a bit, but I was able, like I got up and I was like, dude, like it was a flat section uphill where I got going. And I was like, you have to ride as fast as you possibly can right now, or you're not going to be in the final.
Yeah.
And like, ended up 5th or 6th place or something like that. And I was just like, I'm like, what? What? And like, I rode absolutely on the limit, was not afraid to, I mean, these tracks are brutal. I wasn't afraid to flat a tire, break a rim, wasn't afraid to crash. I just absolutely pegged the thing and rode faster than I ever have through that rock garden. It was absolutely terrifying, but got the job done. And then it was like a relief, but then I had to go up and like knew after doing that, I was like, I could win this race. And then I'm like, no,
as well, man.
No, you know, it'd be nice if I just had like a nice cruisy one and then could have went and raced. So I'm like, okay, if I just have a good run, I'll podium. And I was trying to get top 10 in the overall. That was like a huge goal of mine. And I'm sitting there going, oh man, like this is going to be, you know, difficult. And then warm up, was pretty nervous as normal. Warm up, got in a good place. My girlfriend didn't qualify, so she actually went to the trainer with me until I got on the trainer and kind of hung out. So I had like a bit of comfort, which was nice. You know, my mechanic was there, my girlfriend was there. but it was just difficult because I went to go get in the starting gate. Normally, you're at the top of the mountain. There's nobody up there. Everybody's down to watch the screen. And there's like so many people staring at me. And like people from home, like other fans, and they're like, they get in the starting gate and they're like, oh, don't let us down. Like playing the American anthem, like screaming US, chanting USA. And I was just sick in my helmet, like miserable. I was like, this is not, like, if I could have picked a day, like I thought I could do something great, it wasn't in that environment. Uh-huh. And like I like made my mind up that I was going to go try to ride as fast as I could. And I was like getting halfway down and was getting so, like, I didn't wear earplugs. And I really, like, because usually some of that stuff will, like, is kind of nice. Like, it gets you pumped up, like hearing it. But it was like the first time I was like, dang, I should have raced with earplugs in, because I would have never heard any of this and I wouldn't have been in this scenario. And it just like made it so difficult to focus. Because like I guess I can't say I have ADHD because I don't know that I have ADHD, but I really have a hard time focusing in anything in life. Like I have a hard time remembering where I put my keys in my wallet. I have a hard time remembering to do this podcast. I have to put a big yellow sticky note on my counter to not forget things because I get so overwhelmed, and I just like I'm a mess. Like when it comes to like focusing and remembering things, and then I have this like ability to go to this place when I race that I can't get to in any other aspect of my life. Like when I get off the lift, like I sit in the lift line, and when I get off the lift, I don't say a word. Like me and my mechanic don't talk. I go through the whole process. He gives me a fist bump, and I go on the starting gate, and I like become this different person that like I'm able to like get super cold. I go to this ability to focus that I can't get to anywhere else, and I wasn't able to get there at Snowshoe. Like it was just too much, too many people staring at me, too many people yelling things, and it didn't allow me to be quiet and have this like quiet place that I can go to perform. It's just, it didn't do it for me. And I was able to get an American podium, which was amazing. I rode super well. I rode fast. I hit all my marks, but I just lacked that deep focus that I needed to compete for the win.
Yeah. How do you process that then? Because it's like those external factors are kind of out of your control, but it doesn't stop it being like disappointing, I guess. I mean, third shouldn't feel disappointing.
No,
but like
shouldn't feel disappointing at all. And now we're looking at, this is my first year I've had 2 podiums. Never have I done that before. And I went from a guy with 2 podiums in his career to now this is my 5th podium, and I'm like solidifying myself. There's like, as you get one more, you become in like rarer air. There's a lot of people that have had 5 or 10 top 10s. There's a lot of people that had 2 or 3 podiums, but I'm starting to get into that next bracket of guys that are like consistently, which who knows, maybe next year I'm not that guy anymore. Like maybe I don't go do it ever again. But the reality is in that moment, like in that what I'm saying by that is like, I think I'm going to try my best to still be at the front. Nothing is certain, but I should be ecstatic. And I was like a little bit like, and I was happy. I really was happy to get a podium at home. Like it was really special. But I was just like, I wasn't as happy as I was from second at Ludenville, even though I like got the podium in front of like everyone that watches me race at all the American Nationals, everybody I see at Windrock every weekend, like all my friends. My family wasn't able to make it, but I mean, I was like, should have been really stoked, and I just felt like I wasn't. It just like the whole like experience sitting in the starting gate just kind of like took the wind out of my sails, I felt like, and it just kind of like made it not as special. Even though the race run was good, it was like, man, like I just like regardless of what the result says, like I'm being more and more okay with the effort. And Aaron has really helped me with that. He just says it all the time, content with the effort, content with the effort. Like, if it doesn't go your way, you just got to take it on the chin and accept, you're being a professional. It's just what it is. And yeah, the effort was good. I mean, it was good, but it wasn't what I would expect of myself.
Yeah, you're an athlete, right? You hold yourself to high standards, which is why you're good at what you do. But yeah, so we move on from there, final round of the year, into what looked like an incredible Mont Saint Anne with the leaves falling from the trees and all these kind of colours, and the track looked awesome. To be fair, always seems to put on a good show there. And yet again, you were on a pretty astounding pace that weekend, man.
I was content with that effort, though. That was like, I could have won. I'm going to say this one more time. I could have won. But I had accepted. Like, I had, I guess what my mental coach calls it is radical acceptance. I just had, I struggled all weekend with keeping the bike rolling, keeping air on the tires, keeping it moving. I mean, Mont Saint Anne is brutal. And 2 of every 5 guys coming down the hill didn't have air in the tires. Like, there's a lot of sharp rocks early on in the week, and then as the overall week goes on, they just picked a lot of the rocks out, and it was a little easier to keep the bike with air in the tires. Made it through the semi cruisy, rode super well, and then came into the race run and just was going for it. Like, was riding the pace I would have wanted to ride the weekend before, what I felt I was capable of. I was on the limit. I was going on the limit, going for it. And like, I felt like I was riding super well and just tipped it over. I mean, I wouldn't have done anything different. I just leaned into this corner and I came out a little wide and hit a rock, and my front wheel just went, and I just tipped over and got up and got going again. And then, unfortunately, flatted at the bottom for 6th place, 0.2 off the box. It was like a bummer. Like, I mean, it made me cry. Like, if that tells how real, like, the effort was. And I was in that place, like, probably more in a place of focus than I think I've ever been for a World Cup race run. Just, like, knew that I would have to, like, Jackson had a phenomenal run in semis. And I knew with the title, he'd probably go pretty hard, but maybe not risk everything. And I knew Jackson would, and I knew I could compete. I just gave it my all. And yeah, was fully in tears at the bottom. My girlfriend gave me a big hug, and everybody like from the team was there, and they were all, super nice. But yeah, definitely, I like broke the splits down and how long I was on the ground, and I was pretty upset after that. But
so were the tears were through disappointment or like
it was sad.
A release of energy, or
whenever you do these runs, like you kind of get pretty. And I've talked about this some like on podcasts and stuff, but you get really messed up. Like there's so much adrenaline, so much like that. These special, chemicals that get released in your body that helps you do these amazing things. When you do that thing and then you get to the bottom, like that stuff is still in you, and it like you almost like I've been in the finish corral and not really know what's going on. Like I'll like walk past the hot seat. I'm supposed to go there, and I'm like all kind of delusional. But yeah, just overall, I was sad. Yeah, of course. Like fall down. Like I was more like I was happy with my effort and content and like proud of the way I rode, but I was sad of the outcome. And I think that's okay. It kind of left that little bitter taste in my mouth going into the race season or going into the off season. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing at all.
Yeah, I was going to say, does it give you that little bit more fire in your belly? Like, that you're able to be on podium pace at multiple tracks around the world now.
Yeah.
You know that you've had the pace to win at least probably 3 of the races this year.
Yeah. I mean,
you're just going to work your ass off.
Yeah.
Right?
You can be the fastest guy and not win. That's why racing is so special, and racing will never compare to anything else, because you can have all the money in the world, and it doesn't guarantee you're going to win. And you can put in the most work out of everybody, and some people just may have it that day. Every day is a new man's day, and that's what I think is so special about racing, and what makes it like something that I love so much and I want to continue to do. But it's like, but even to be in this position, like this is like, okay, yeah, I didn't win a World Cup. I got a second place. I got a third place. I've had the most amazing year of my career. I mean, I had it all, in, for lack of better terms, go to shit, and I still got ninth in the overall, which is something I wanted to achieve, I mean, for the last 3 years, and I've fallen short of every year. I mean, in 2022, I was 10th going into the final and blew it. Like, didn't make top 10 in the overall. Did the same thing the year before. So it's like, overall, like, I'm in a good place. Like, I'm happy with what I'm doing, and I'm enjoying racing more than I ever have, and I think that leads to where I'm at where I'm at on the results list.
Yeah, man, it's good to see. It's good to hear that you're enjoying it as well. Do you feel like anything needs to change, or do you think it's just like, I'm doing all the right stuff, I've got the right recipe, I just need to keep at it? Yeah,
I think that's a lot of it. It's just perfecting the craft, right? And just learning more racecraft. Like, man, old Greg boy has raced a couple of races in his day, and I mean, that's no excuse. Like, you see a dude like Jackson that's just come on the scene and he's like guns a-blazing and killing it, and he doesn't have the amount of racecraft that Greg has, or Aaron, or any of those dudes. So it's not. But I feel like, for me personally, like, not comparing myself to anyone else, I need to keep working on my racecraft and my mental state, and being confident with the bike, do the work, spend the money to go somewhere preseason and get a good amount of testing in and get really comfortable. And overall, I think once I get more consistency off the bike, like in terms of like not living in a camper, not building a house in the off season, getting all my stuff done early. I mean, you look at some dudes do a lot of extracurricular activities and still race super well, but I think like getting to 80% is easy, like getting to 90% is you can do, but to be the best or to win is like, you have to dedicate your whole life to something. And especially like all these other dudes are. So like, what do you do other than being special on that one day, And I think if I can continue to like have, my life at home a lot more consistent, I can maybe have a little more consistency at the race, do the work preseason. So like, when these other guys are kind of getting a refresh and coming in level headed and they're not tired, I'm not over there. Like, I can take those breaks in the middle of the season to rest and refocus, rather than like being with the hammer and the chisel mid-season, when some of the other guys are getting refreshed.
Yeah. We talked about this like repeating thing of having to get familiar with a new bike. Rumor has it, and this could be wrong, that Intense Factory Racing won't be at the World Cup next year. Obviously it's off season, it's not a time where we can necessarily go into all of this stuff, but do you have something you're happy with for 2024?
Yeah.
Like, are we good?
I'm in a good place. Like, all my stuff is pretty done and dusted at this point in time, and I'm really excited with everything going forward. And overall, I'm in a good place. I have good people around me. I feel like I've obviously rode well at the end of last season, and I think it's good. Like, I think it's going to be really good. I'm excited. Obviously, the rumor mill will swirl, right?
Of course.
It always does. And all the internet forums think they got it all figured out. It's kind of funny to watch. It is, but I mean, you got to figure a lot of those rumors won't be true, and some of them may. Who knows?
But it's a tricky year. There's a lot of brands that are struggling and race teams that won't be there. So you've earned it, man. You've put the good results in at a time where it's been probably even more important than normal. So yeah, good on you, dude.
Yeah, Appreciate it.
How have you found the new format this year? Because we've had some pretty significant changes, and it does ask a bit of, maybe not necessarily more, but it's definitely different for the riders. How have you found it personally?
Yeah, it's been really interesting because I don't really like sitting around and waiting all day to race. Like, it's kind of nice to stay busy and keep going through the motions, but I haven't quite perfected like how much I should warm up, how fast I should go. Because like when I kind of sneak through the semi and don't really go for points and save it for the final, then I like feel like I left something on the table, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just getting that effort level to like kind of try to be top 5, be okay with being top 10. Don't really want to be top 15 because it's going to affect, it could affect the track that you have versus the top guys. I mean, it could go in your favor. It could work against you. But just like not like Leger, like I said, qualified third, semifinal third for those that don't keep track. I know it's I keep track because it's very personal to me, but nobody else probably does other than you that maybe looked it up. But like when I have a weekend like that, it's like I made a ton of points even though I crashed in the final. Like made a ton of points. It was almost like I did average in the final. But then I felt like I had like going into the final, it lost a lot of the spark. And now like Ludenville, I was like 12th or 15th in the semi. Like squeaked it through and then was kind of upset. And then still had to wait around a long time for the final. And then ended up doing good, but it was like, then I gave up a lot of points in the semi, even though I did really good in the final. So I haven't quite perfected the equation. And as far as, I think the second part of the question was how I enjoyed it. Man, it does. I as much as I would like to say, yeah, I like the semi, it's good for me when I'm consistent. It's good for a consistent rider. It teaches more consistency and rewards consistency rather than like a go for broke style, which I would like to see more reward for consistency and less like kamikaze runs. And I don't know how to achieve that, but it's like, it kind of takes some of the spark away from the final. It just like you come down the semifinal, you're like, that was sweet. And then you're like, wait, that wasn't the final. I got to go do it again.
You've got to do that again. Yeah.
And that part's like, it's kind of, I feel like for the fans, it doesn't have the same energy.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't like even like snowshoe. It was like home race, and I got to the bottom. Ooh, that was cool and it was special, but it wasn't like I mean, it was pretty magic. Like seeing like a guy got sent some like cell phone clips of like everyone when I was coming down, and it was mental. It was like this amazing special moment, but compared to like, it wasn't the same. I don't think personally. Yeah. Maybe it's just like the build up of us for riders when we have to like the build up feels more maybe when it's just one race run. I don't know, but I feel like for me, like my fitness, I think it was good.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, do you feel like certain riders maybe benefited over others in that change? Like, do you think it suits certain, I don't know whether it's fitness or personality types or?
I mean, it definitely fit the dudes that were qualified through the semi. I mean, definitely fit that, right? When you're competing for top 5 in the overall, you start getting to the top. Like, it's not really fair. I don't think personally. I mean, maybe that's, I don't know, but I personally don't think so as a dude racing it. I would like to go into the semifinal knowing I'm going to the final and I can send it and try to get some points for the overall. Like that would be sweet. Would be cool. But I mean, the reality is it's not really fair. And in terms of like, I definitely think that it does help some riders that are a lot fitter. And I'm not calling anyone out, but it seemed like there were some riders that by the time they got done with the final run, like they were spent. Like they looked really tired. I think it benefited me because I do have like a deep base of fitness. Sometimes maybe I lack the overall strength that some of the other guys have, which is something I'm trying to work on. But like if you look at Lloyd, I mean, it's not hard to see. If you look at like Lloyd compared to me, like the dude looks like he's like an NFL tight end. He's jacked. I'm like, oh wow, I'm gonna race you. You know,
Okay.
whoa.
Yeah.
Even Aaron's a big dude, and it's like I think I a lot of the time lack that overall strength, which helps for that one spectacular run. Like maybe, you know, those, if you look at a lot of the dudes that are doing well, I mean, either they move really well on the bike, like Jackson or Loris, where they're like use very little energy riding and they look super efficient. But or you look at like a Mari, or I mean, Loic looks smooth, but he looks smooth because he's so strong. And Amari just looks like he's like really, really strong, and that's why he's able to ride that next level of speed. It's I think is a contributing factor.
For sure.
So yeah, I guess I think it definitely would benefit some people for sure.
Yeah, and we've seen the calendar now for 2024. No US round. I was going to ask if that was a surprise or a disappointment, but given your experience this year, maybe it's nice not to have a home round.
I think it's just the backwards mountain I don't really care for. Like I like that, like going up there, getting off the lift. It's you and your mechanic. It's this like Zen-like thing. It's this special place, and then it's really quiet. You drop in. I mean, you could not a lot of people have been up there, and you see the helmet cams, but like. The tension is high for sure, but it's so quiet, and it's bizarre, really. I mean, there was other riders at the top at Mount St. Anne, but nobody was really paying attention. So, like, because the deck was so close to the starting gate, but usually just that, like, that walk to the finish or to the starting line is just like, it's just different. It's like it's really quiet. So no snowshoe. Yeah. I have to say that the amount of times I've went through that rock garden that fast, and I'm alive to tell the tale, I'm pretty happy with, because it's pretty scary. But yeah, it's always a bummer not racing in the States. Maybe if we had the mountain the other way around.
Maybe we'll have some future US rounds in different venues. Like there's plenty of spots in the US surely that are capable. So hopefully we'll see it.
And I'm really excited about a new venue next year.
Yeah, Poland. Do you know anything about that?
I don't even know if I mean, hey, I could just be blowing smoke, but I heard that there is no track there right now, and they're building the track for the event or something, kind of like Ludenville, which is pretty weird for me. But I'm sure it'll be great. I mean, if you're willing to put up the money to hold a World Cup, I would think that you're willing to do the work to have it prepared in time.
For sure. Yeah, you'd hope so. I don't know when Paulette started work on Ludenvier, but they did a good job on the track by the looks of things.
That was like one of the best days I've ever had riding my bike, was that Friday practice. It was like I did 6 runs and was laughing and screaming the entire time. That was like, I mean, on the internet, they're like, oh, the track looks terrible. It's a blue trail. I was like, that was awesome. That was so sick.
It's amazing.
It was awesome. Well,
yeah.
You know,
sweet.
New
Nice
tracks.
One, so what's next for you then? Are you hanging around in the US for a bit? Are you heading over to Europe to get some fast laps in somewhere? Like what's the plan for the winter?
Man, right now, I'm deep in it. So, my house was, to give everyone the backstory, obviously built my home, and I got some help from some friends to get it done mid-season, which was really exciting. And then when we came back in the break, I was able to like move in like the bare minimum of stuff before we went to snowshoes or nationals and snowshoes. So like had a mattress on the floor, 2 pans, 2 forks, 2 spoons, like 2 coffee cups. Like I didn't have a couch in it or anything. We were eating dinner just sitting in the middle of the floor against the wall. And so I was able to get home and kind of move some stuff into my house. This picture over here hung, I don't know if the video will go up, but I'm assuming it probably will. This picture over here hung in my grandparents' house, like above the TV my whole life growing up. So I was able to hang that on the wall. And just getting my desk and my routine dialed in. That's the biggest thing, is I'm going to try to work super hard over the next like 2 or 3 weeks while training's not like, obviously I'm started training again already, but it's not like, peak where you have to be absolutely 100% to get through the workout. So just getting organized and getting a routine at home, just working on, just making my environment, I guess the word is conducive to what I'm trying to achieve. And it seems like we all work on organization, and we chase comfort, right? As human beings, we want comfort. We're in a constant chase to be more and more comfortable. And the idea of things being more comfortable and easier to train, like easier to get the job done is, I mean, obviously something we all strive for. So getting my routine down, trying to figure out how things work efficiently and where I'm going to put my stuff, and organizing my stuff for the last time ever, hopefully for a little while, because it's like I moved and moved and moved, and it's like reorganized. I never had enough room for anything. So like now just getting the routine, getting organized, and then ride my dirt bike hopefully as much as possible. Like I just love riding that thing, and I've been really into riding in the woods, riding more like technical, like almost like enduro type riding on the moto. So enjoying that, trying to make some gains in the strength department, and then chances are I'll probably try to go preseason, move around a little bit to ride some different tracks. Hopefully if I can get everything settled here and life is pretty routine at home, then I can like sneak away for a week here and there and try to put the setup on new tracks, and make sure that everything's working well, and try to be a little more prepared for the race season than I was last year. Maybe not New Zealand or anything like that, just because I do feel like after the bulk of work that I put in, I would really like to try and spend some time at home.
Yeah, helps you to be away the rest of the year, I guess. Nice one, man. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up. It's been awesome to watch you making progress season after season, and ticking off goals and working your way up the timing sheets. I'm excited to see what 2024 holds. But yeah, thanks for taking the time to sit down with us for a chat. If people want to follow, where's the best place for them to look?
Yeah, my Instagram is primarily where I do the most. I try to do a little bit more with YouTube, and I think that I put a couple of videos out last year, but I'm going to try to do more of that, more insight to racing, like my preseason and testing and technical stuff going into next year. So, but for right now, keep up with me on Instagram. We're going to be doing quite a bit on the Beat Practice podcast, and I may have some things in the work where people can listen along a little bit more. I've really been enjoying like listening to some of the different riders' podcasts, so maybe I'll put out a little bit of one of my own.
Nice one, man. Looking forward to it, dude. Well, yeah, have a good rest of the off season, and we'll see you on the track next year.
Thanks for having me, mate. Cheers.